Today we're talking about the 7artisans 85mm T2 Spectrum Cine lens. Over the last couple of weeks, we have been talking about these new Spectrum Cine lenses from 7artisans. So this is the last one to discuss to close out the entire set. And so with that, I am going to be reviewing this lens individually, but at the end of the video and my overall thoughts, I will be giving my overall thoughts on the entire set and what I think about the entire set after shooting with them for the last few weeks. Let's go ahead and start breaking down what I think about this lens, but I do want to give the clarification just in case you're curious. 7artisans did lend me these lenses to test out, but as always, I'm not requesting I say anything specifically, and so you will get my full and honest opinion. That out of the way, as always, we are going to break down the review of this lens by the image, the build, and my overall thoughts / who I think they'll be useful for. And let's start by talking about the image. Now I'm going to go ahead and say this 85mm is probably my favorite in the set by far. You're going to get a really nice, pleasing, sharp image where it matters. I'm not going to say it's sharp all the way across the frame, but I will say out in the wild, it is such an amazing image. I really liked using this lens on the S5 because of the IBIS. Oh yeah, we should probably talk about the fact that I bought an S5. Maybe here soon. I digress. But with the combo of the S5 and the 85mm T2, I was able to be more of a fly on the wall with some of my behind the scenes shots. And so I really like the performance of this lens. I think the flaring is really nice. I think it offers a really sharp image, especially in the center. There's some good subject isolation, especially with the T2 aperture. And so really all I can say is I've just been really impressed with how this lens performs image quality wise. Now, is it perfect? Absolutely not. Just like the other lenses in this set, it will suffer from some chromatic aberration. There will be some focus breathing, which is kind of disappointing. Continuing around the conversation of some of the negatives about this lens as far as image quality, I really wasn't impressed with the minimum focusing distance, but this is an 85mm lens. Generally speaking, those aren't going to have great minimum focusing distance, but I was really hoping to be surprised, and unfortunately I just wasn't. And so like I said before, there are some negatives around the image quality of this lens, but overall, I'm really impressed with how this lens does perform. So with that, let's talk about the build of the lens. Now, if you've watched any of the other Spectrum Cine lens reviews, really everything is going to be the same. You have an 82mm filter thread, you have a 270-degree focus throw, which is, again, just really awesome. All metal body. Still haven't figured out what the hell the pins are for. Maybe somebody at 7artisans will chime in the comments. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think anybody knows what they're for. I've been trying. Unsuccessfully. Now, the 85mm is going to be a little bit longer than the 50 and the 35, but one thing I really like about it is the focus and the iris gear are all in the same location. Why that's important is because if you're using a follow focus unit, you spend less time switching out lenses because you don't have to readjust the follow focus motor. So just like I've said with the 35 and the 50mm, I'm just really impressed with the build of these lenses, being that these are so inexpensive and the build being so good and the image quality being really good as well. I honestly am just, you know what? I'll hold those thoughts for my overall thoughts. So let's get into my overall thoughts about this lens as well as the set of Spectrum lenses. So as far as the overall thoughts on the 85mm, I'm going to keep this kind of short. I really have been pleased with the overall image performance of this lens. I absolutely think if you're looking for an 85mm, this is one to check out, especially if you're on a budget and looking for a cinema lens. You will not be disappointed. It offers such a good image. And now as far as the entire set of Spectrum lenses, I really have been impressed with these lenses. I came into these reviews very skeptical on how they would perform, and I've been pleasantly surprised that they performed really well for what they offer and really what they cost. Now, again, they are not perfect by any means, but if you are looking at a set of cinema lenses and you are on an ultra low budget, these are definitely ones to look at. They're fairly consistent across the board, which is something that you really want with cinema lenses. Now, there may be a color shift between the 35, the 50, and the 85. The 50 and the 85 should be pretty consistent, but what I found is the 35 is a little bit warmer in some scenarios. Now, that may also be because the model I have is possibly a pre-production model, so take that with the ever so slightly small grain of salt that there may be a color shift between the 35 and the 50 and the 85. But that being said, what I've seen is there is slightly a color shift there. But as far as things like exposure consistency, so when all lenses are at T2, you're gonna have relatively the same exposure, which is what you want from a cinema lens. The reason you want exposure consistency is when you do swap lenses on set, you don't have to spend more time compensating for that exposure difference when you do switch lenses, which is something you may suffer from when you're using photography lenses. This is also one reason I may consider looking at these as opposed to vintage lenses. Don't get me wrong, I love vintage lenses. I think they have a great character. I definitely think they have their place on set, but some things you'll get from a cinema lens that you may not get from a vintage photography lens is things like exposure consistency across the board of the set of lenses, because these weren't really made to be a set. And so overall, I do think if you're a budget, ultra low budget filmmaker, cinematographer, this is absolutely a set of lenses I would check out. And so if that is you, I would 100% check out the new Spectrum Cine lenses from 7artisans. And so that's it for me. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like. And if you're digging the overall content from the channel, consider subscribing. If you do any more questions about this lens, let me know in the comments below, or the set of lenses, let me know in the comments below. Speaking of cheap plugs, I do want to mention that this past week, we did launch our new snapback hats. I'm wearing mine right now. We only have a couple of these left, and so if you do want to help support the channel and get your own hat, check out the link in the description below. I don't think you'll be disappointed. I really like it. It's my new favorite hat. And I'm not just saying that because I had my logo. I mean, I'm for real. It's very comfortable. As always, thank you for joining. Go and find your journey. Go embrace life. Peace. This is a weird thing.